to, or throw a question in the chat when you need to. I am just very excited about tonight's program. So we will get started. I decided to do this lovely newspaper template for you guys because Secretariat was so often in the papers, in the headlines. We will go through a couple of pretty big myths as per usual, and then a few smaller myths, and talk a little bit about what I think the movie actually did very well. So first big myth of the movie. In the Secretariat movie, we sort of see Penny Chenery, as played by Diane Lane, beautifully receive a call very early on in the film, and she has to rush back to the meadow, which is located here in Virginia, because her mother has died and her father is too ill to continue to run the farm. She has to take over the running of the farm, and in subsequent scenes, Secretariat is born and goes on to be this amazing champion who saves the meadow. Now, we will talk a little bit about Secretariat and just his amazing accomplishments, because he certainly cemented the meadow, I think, in horse racing mythology even. His name is so big. But he's not maybe actually the first horse that Penny had that truly saves the farm. So when Penny takes over the farm, there's actually another horse who is born shortly after she takes over running the estate, named River Ridge. River Ridge was sort of a gangly, awkward colt, but grows up to be very quick. And the year before Secretariat wins the Triple Crown, River Ridge actually wins the Kentucky Derby and the Belmont, and wins just a ton of money for the farm. And that's what really sort of financially saves the farm during those first few years that Penny is running it. And he is the horse that that really convinces the siblings to give the meadow another chance. So Secretariat certainly cements the meadow's place in history, but River Ridge is the first one to financially save it. Along with Secretariat's breeding rights syndication, River Ridge was also syndicated for about $5 million, I believe. Correct me if that's wrong. But he's really the financial powerhouse during those first couple of years that Penny's running the farm. Now, in the movie, we also sort of see this team of dream characters come together to sort of shepherd Secretariat along his way. And while it is certainly a team effort, we have Lucian and we have Ron, the jockey. They also did work for the meadow prior to Secretariat's racing. They were not specifically brought on to train him and to ride him. They actually worked for the farm before. They rode River Ridge. They were familiar with Penny before that. So why did Disney leave out this other amazing champion that the meadow had? I think the answer is pretty simple. It is just not as dramatic of a story if you have two super horses 2 years in a row. And Secretariat, like we will talk about, is truly just a champion of all champions. And his story does sort of, by winning the Triple Crown, overshadow Riva's a little bit. But a champion in his own right, an amazing horse. And the one that I think Kate can probably speak to this a little bit at the end, that she talks about her mom, Penny, having a huge emotional attachment to, because they did really go through the hardships of those first couple years of financial hardships together. Riva was there for her, helping save the farm by winning races. So here we have a picture of Secretariat and Riva in true historical fashion. His face is a little cut out, unfortunately. He's getting left out of the narrative again. That's my fault. But we have this picture of the two of them together on an exercise track, the real Penny, the real Lucian, Ron, and the jockey that plays him. I love that they used an actual jockey to play Ron in the movie. I think that is an excellent touch. All right. So our next big myth that we are going to bust is actually about Penny herself. Again, played by Diane Lane beautifully. I loved her portrayal. And I think something that the movie actually does really well is in that first scene, we see Diane, handily mixing up pancakes, answering the phone, taking down notes about everything she needs to do for her family that day and that week. And it is immediately obvious to the audience that she is like the housewife of all housewives. Like, there is no better housewife than Diane Lane playing Penny Chenery Tweedy. Like, no one better organized, no one better to take care of her family. And while Penny certainly was efficient and organized, I have it on good authority that she was maybe not quite the housewife that she was shown to be in that film. She did not enjoy cooking. She did not enjoy cleaning, and in fact was quite independent and adventurous. So I understand again why the movie made that choice. They have to show her as someone really learning to inhabit a completely different world for dramatic effect. But in reality, I actually think her story is so much more amazing. She grew up with her father. This is actually one of my favorite pictures right here of her as a young girl in a riding habit. And she grew up riding horses with her father. And she was a father's girl, a daddy's girl, and was very close to him. And she went away to boarding school and was the head of her equestrian team there. She went to college.
Okay.
I'm going to remind everyone to keep yourselves muted. We do have like over 80 participants, so need to make sure that we are staying muted for everyone. So we, Penny, like I was saying, she is the head of an equestrian team. She is a very accomplished horsewoman. So she knows quite a bit about horses when she is thrown into the situation to take over the meadow farm. Additionally, she went to Columbia to get her MBA, to get her graduate degree in business. She did not graduate. She finished a few months shy because she got married and did drop out to start the family. But she had almost a complete graduate degree in business. So again, she knows a lot more about business and horses sort of up front than the movie shows us when she takes over the farm. She also was what I believe is called a donut girl and went overseas after World War II to keep morale up for the troops. So she was independent. She was outdoorsy. She knew horses. She knew business. She did have to sort of learn the ins and outs of horse racing as a specific business and as a specific world, which we see a little bit in the film. But she was not as ill-suited, I think, as the movie shows. But again, that is for dramatic effect. And the movie does show that she is a strong woman. One of the first scenes we see of her in the stable, she fires a trainer that has tried to cheat the farm. And this actually did happen, not quite that quickly, not in her first week on the job, but after about a year and a half, she did realize that there was a trainer on the farm who was trying to sort of cheat them out of their profits, and she did let him go. So she was an astute businesswoman, an astute horsewoman. She knew the matches to make with the broodmares and the sires, and she has cemented her place in racing legend, which I think is lovely. But again, it's a Disney movie. They have to build in some drama, so that's why they changed the personality a little bit. Speaking of Disney drama, we'll chat about a few of the short things, and these are some of my favorites. So some of the more minor things that the movie sort of focuses on is this syndication of Secretariat's breeding rights. Her siblings and her husband, Penny's siblings and husband, come to her and they say, the farm, we owe a lot of taxes on the farm and we need about $6 million to save it. Where are you going to get $6 million? You need to sell Secretariat. Penny says she will not sell Secretariat, and she figures out another way to come up with the money. And all this is true. She did syndicate Secretariat for about $6 million for breeding rights, which meant that other farm owners did buy breeding rights from her to have access to Secretariat once he became a stallion at stud. And it was one of, if not the highest syndication deals for a stallion at the time. It was a wild price, and she did enlist Seth Hancock to help her with it, as we see in the movie as well. So that is very accurate. Again, she also syndicated River Ridge around the same time for about $5 million. So that brings them up to, $11 million just off of these two horses, which is insane. Horse racing is quite the business. But there is another aspect to this in the movie. In the movie, we see that there is a performance clause built in. Secretariat loses his first race after this big syndication, the Wood Memorial, and everyone is saying he better not lose another one. Like, we won't pay if he loses another one. This is entirely fabricated for Disney drama. Horse people, there are quite a few of you out there, I think, know that you cannot ever force a horse to perform in a certain way. You can't have a performance clause. You can't guess what a horse is going to do on race day. There are just too many factors. And even more importantly than that, a horse that's not a great racer can be an amazing sire. So A performance clause is not something that people insisted on, but it certainly helped his case that he won the Triple Crown, I think. Next to here, we have a picture of Secretariat and Sham. This is from the movie. This is not from real life. But Sham is really shown to be Secretariat's arch rival in this film. And Sham, in real life, was a true champion, just so fast. It's stated several times in the movie that he, has the second fastest times in the Kentucky Derby and in the Preakness. And in a year without Secretariat, that would have been enough to really make Sham live in infamy. But unfortunately for him, he was racing Secretariat. And again, this is a device that the movie uses to really create drama. This is a historical film. Any of us could Google what truly happened. We all know that Secretariat ended up winning the Triple Crown. So they did have to find some ways to create some tension and some drama. And they did that by framing Sham as one of his arch rivals. Certainly was a rival, but Secretariat handily beat him in 3 of their 4 matchups. The 4th was the Wood Memorial, where we see Secretariat losing to Sham in the film because of the abscess in his mouth. That is accurate. But there actually was also a 3rd horse that day who came in first. Sham came in 2nd, and Secretariat came in 3rd. The movie actually does quite a bit of a disservice, I think, to Sham's trainer, who, by all accounts from what I've read, he was a lively character, he was a horse person, but he was not mean, and they did not have these press conferences where he insulted Penny Chenery's character and that sort of thing, as we see between the actor that plays him and, again, Diane Lane in the film. So this is beefed up for drama, as the movie must do. And then the last thing that's sort of, well, not the last like completely inaccurate thing, but the last big thing I'll focus on is the coin flip. So a time in the movie that I think is really lovely and really well done, although, again, maybe not entirely accurate, is that Diane Lane, Penny, is shown to say, we really, really want this foal from this mare because the bloodlines mean that he is going to be fast, like Bold Ruler, but he is also going to be able to stay. He can stick it out. He's going to have stamina. And they lose the coin flip and they get Secretariat. Now, the coin flip was a very real deal that her father set up. And they did send 2 broodmares to be bred to Bold Ruler, and then they would flip a coin, and the Chenerys would keep one, and the Phipps would keep one. Now, in 1969, the year before Secretariat was born, Penny lost the coin flip, but she renegotiated the terms of the agreement so she would get first pick of the foal born in 1970. In 1970, Secretariat was the only foal that was brought to term. So she got Secretariat. So there wasn't a coin flip for him specifically. She sort of got him de facto. There wasn't a scene quite like the one we see in the movie, but the spirit of the coin flip and the deal that was set up by her father is absolutely correct. And her father was someone who really relied on the bloodlines of broodmares as opposed to just stallions. And so because of that, they did get this wonderful combination of stamina and speed. So he also, I don't think, made an offer to buy Secretariat for $7 million outright prior to the Triple Crown that I have read. But I'm sure there were many offers to buy Secretariat before the Triple Crown. So those are just some small things that Disney sort of highlighted, again, for the drama of a movie where we already know what happens. So I will take a quick look. This is one of my favorite quotes from the Belmont, where he wins by so much, 31 lengths, I believe. And the announcer says, he's moving like a tremendous machine. I'll send the clip out after this in the follow-up email. I mean, it is just amazing to watch him just pull away from the field. So something I think the movie does really beautifully is highlight a story of a woman, of a powerful woman, of Penny sort of coming into her own in a male-dominated world. And it highlights the true athleticism of Secretariat himself. I mean, he was a super horse in the early 70s. The country was sad. Vietnam was going on, Watergate was going on. The country needed something to believe in, and Secretariat gave a lot of people that. He also, winning the Triple Crown is an incredible feat. Prior to Secretariat, no horse had won it for about 25 years. And the first several winners, there were only like an average of 3 to 5 years in between wins. The longest time prior to Secretariat had been 11 years. So it had been 25 years since any other horse had managed to do this. And I mean, it just really captured the country's imagination. And I think the movie does a great job of showing the connection that people, and horse people specifically, have to their animals. I rode horses from 3rd grade up through college. And nothing makes me happier than just like a beautiful scene of horses like frolicking in a meadow and being taken care of by people that clearly love them. So I think the movie does a great job of showing his athleticism and his beauty. When he died, his heart was double the size of any other, of the average horse, which is likely the biological reason that he was able to run so quickly for so long. But I think the movie does a great job of really recreating that magic, again, in a world where we do know what happens, and you can read many books on him and you can look up all these real videos of him. I think the movie does a great job, especially that opening scene where she is quoting from the Bible and the horse's hooves are thundering. So the spirit of the movie, I think, is very true to the story, even if a few facts were left out for dramatic effect. So I will do a quick connection and then turn it over to our special guests, talk a little bit about their experience, and give you guys some time to drop questions in the chat. So one of the things that I found when I was researching this movie was a scrapbook that belonged to Linwood Holton, former governor of Virginia. He presented the trophy at the Belmont Stakes to the Chennerys, to Secretariat specifically. And we actually have that scrapbook. So this is a photo from the scrapbook of Secretariat winning the Belmont. And we have quite a few photos from that visit to Belmont from Linwood Holton. We also have quite a few things in our library, but those were not digitized, and it is not attractive to just put a call number up on this slide. So I didn't put those, but quite a few things in the library, secondary sources, books about Secretariat, and also correspondence between families in Doswell, Virginia, talking about the meadow and talking about the Chennery family. So quite a few things there. I also found out this statue might look familiar to some of you. This is our warhorse statue in front of the building. This was commissioned and gifted to the museum by a man named Paul Mellon, who was an avid thoroughbred enthusiast, racer, Virginian. He also commissioned and gifted this statue of Secretariat. So we have a little bit of a horse statue connection there as well. I liked that. All right, quick plug for upcoming programs and then introducing our special guests. So I am so happy to have so many of you for this movie Mythbusting. We will be taking a break from live programs until the end of January, but you can catch our Liberties Kids Across the Delaware pre-recorded program in a few weeks. And then here's some upcoming programs as well: a banner lecture on the James River, a curator conversation talking about things that are new to the collection, and a collage workshop. All of that information is on our events calendar, and I will send it out to you guys tomorrow in the follow-up email as well. But I did just want to plug it. So now to our special guests. A book that I read all of and really enjoyed was Secretariat's Meadow. We used to have it in the gift shop. I believe that we still might have a copy or two, but if any of you guys are interested in it, I will send information on how to purchase it directly from Wayne and Dementi Publishing, as long with an autographed copy potentially from Kate and Leanne as well. And then I will turn it over to the three of you. Kate Chennery Tweedy, the daughter of Penny, the daughter of Diane Lane, as shown in this movie, Wayne and Leanne, who all helped put this book together, which was invaluable for me when I was putting this program together. And they've been an amazing resource, and we are so grateful to have them here at this program. So I don't know if you just want to tell everyone a little bit about your experience with the movie, what you loved, what you didn't love, and I will see if anyone has any questions in the chat for you.
So thank you so much. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces. Maggie, a lot of these folks who are tuned in know this story really well. They've come to various events. We've all met several times up at the Meadow. The Meadow, of course, was Granddad's farm, which was where Secretariat was born in Doswell. And we have, for years, had a tour program there. Of course, that's not happening now. But so we've had a great opportunity to meet a lot of you through that. We had, and I want to also introduce Wayne Dementi. You can see him with Diane Lane up there in the photograph. That's his biggest dream come true, I think, in life, other than having his children and grandchildren, was to meet Diane Lane. And so Wayne was our publisher, and Leanne was my co-author. And Leanne, if you want to go back to the other photo, the other group photo. Anyway, she's on the call too. But she and Wayne and I have been on this fabulous adventure for the last really 12 years, telling Secretariat's story and telling Secretariat's story to the world. We are, you can cut back to the other photo if you can. I mean, not that I don't love staring at Diane. And
I can, indeed.
Leanne is in the blue dress right there. And that is Bill Knack, who wrote the other great book on Secretariat, in the big group picture here. And the other folks in this group picture are the grooms who raised Secretariat, who also helped us write the book. And they have an amazing story that's not well known. They were such great horsemen that I think that's a big part of why Secretariat was such a great horse, was because he was, you know, it's like it takes a village to raise a kid well, and these were the men who raised Secretariat. So we were very honored to have them be part of our group. So there's Leanne in the blue, and Bill Knack, who's a wonderful author who wrote the other great book about Secretariat, Secretariat Making of a Champion, which is also an invaluable resource for anyone who wants to know the real story. There's the group photo. Yeah, so Leanne's in blue, Bill Knack's on the right in the jacket, and these folks here are the grooms who worked on the meadow. So anyway, more stories about the movie. I'm featured sort of as the main child in the movie. Really, that's only because I talked to the screenwriter more than anybody else in the family. So, but it was true that I was the hippie rebel. That's quite true. I did go to Chile, and that started my whole career in working with immigrants and doing my interest in Latin America. And there certainly was a cultural gulf going on at the time. And the scene where I am singing, and in this play that I've invented about, you know, that it's a Christmas play, and they're throwing paper airplanes at me. That was entirely made up. I do not sing. I have never been in a play like that. However, Disney was smart. They had to use a device to illustrate the times and to illustrate the hardship that Mother went through in being a working mom and being on the road a lot, because she was on the road. We still lived in Denver. The farm was out here in Virginia. You know, she was gone for several weeks out of every month, a lot of times. So that was all true. Although I have to say, and Maggie alluded to this, she was not cut out to be a housewife. She should have been a CEO from the beginning. And she was so happy when she took over the farm. It's like she sprouted wings. She became it was the thing she had been, sort of needing to do her whole life. So, the Diane Lane character was wonderfully done. I thought I loved how much she looked like her, and she had this really strong personality in the movie, but Mom was a lot stronger and tougher than Diane Lane. And of course, Disney knows that if you want to make a really dramatic movie, you have to show a character arc. So she, transforms from this housewife to this, very, triumphant woman. And that was true. And that was great. I think they did a nice job. But I felt like I didn't see myself in the beautiful young lady who played me. That I didn't feel like she portrayed me at all. But, they did a pretty decent job of that. So I know that some of you have questions. I'll keep rattling on for a bit, but I'm happy to answer questions from anybody who wants to ask.
Yes. Let's see. I have one here. How did Penny feel about Riva not being mentioned in the movie at all? She adored him.
She loved Riva. Riva was her favorite. I hate to say it, but only because he was sort of an underdog, and she always rooted for the underdog. And Secretariat was so beautiful and magnificent and did everything so well. It was like she always said he was America's horse, but Riva was her horse. And although she also did certainly love Secretariat, I think again Disney needed to make that sort of cosmic connection that you see in the movie. That was a little bit emphasized for the movie. She loved all her horses, and she was a great horse person, so she loved horses. But anyway, that was a bit exaggerated.
Yeah. I mean, the meadow, and you guys go into this in your book, which I love. I mean, it had a long history of great horses. Secretariat was maybe the best, but certainly not the first.
Nope,
yes.
But we had a horse of the year in 1950. So
yes.
Granddad was one of these overnight sensations that after 30 years of hard work, which is generally true, I think, with great success stories. But Secretariat was the culmination of breeding knowledge that he had honed since 1936. And a huge amount of luck and a huge amount of just, the grace of God, we were very pleased that Disney did the movie. A script had been floating around Hollywood for a long time. And Mom wasn't going to authorize any movie until Disney came along because we knew they would do a good job. And they did. But, back to the differences, myth busting. When we said to them, hey, you left out Reva, you left out my aunt, who Mom had a sister, left out New York City, where they actually lived. The farm was here, but they all lived in New York City. They said too many people, too many places, and we never let the facts get in the way of a good story. So next time you see a movie that is based on fact, keep that in mind, because they really, it's like, we don't like that fact, we're going to eliminate it. Or we think we could tell it a better way if we do it this way. And the fact is, they made a good movie. So they knew what they were doing. But we were all like, you can't do that. You can't leave out Reva.
And for people who had never heard the story before,
right,
it certainly is, it hooks you in.
Yeah.
Let's see.
But I do have to say, one of the most surreal moments of my life was sitting in the audience with my family, looking up at the screen and hearing my name. And people who purport to be my family doing all this stuff. And it's like, it really, they didn't look like us and they didn't sound like us. And they did a lot of the things we did, but they weren't us. So it was bizarre.
I'm sure it's very odd. A lot of the movies that we do for this program are not, they are so far in the past, we don't have people that can still talk about how odd it was to watch themselves be played on screen.
Yeah.
All right, I have a lot of questions rolling in now. How much of the movie was filmed in Virginia? I know they toured the meadow, but I'm actually not sure how much of it was
very sad. And Wayne and Leanne we worked so hard to try to get the film done here in Virginia, and none of it. It was Kentucky and Louisiana, and that's all about tax credits. If the state can offer you enough money, they'll film there. And so very sad.
Okay, let's see. Are there still horses at the meadow? The meadow is the state farm or the state fair park now. Are there still, and they still have tours of the space, but there's no horses there.
No, don't have the tours anymore. I hate to jump in on a negative note, especially not having my webcam working. But no, due to the COVID, the tours were suspended back in March, unfortunately, just before the 50th birthday party we had planned for Secretariat. And so when the tours were suspended indefinitely, and I decided to go on and retire, and there was a lot of staff that was laid off. So there was nobody there. I lived at the meadow with my husband and took care of Groundshaker and Mia, the mini. And so after all of that, there was not going to be anybody there that could take care of the horses. And Groundshaker is at a very nice stable with other retired thoroughbreds. And Mia is with a very loving family who spoils her even more rotten than we did. So they're well taken care of.
Good.
Groundshaker was the last horse Mom bred, who was retired to the meadow as part of the tourism program, and Leanne was the tourism director until March. So that's
it'll come back.
We hope
it'll be back.
We hope so.
What was Secretariat like to work around? They really ham up his personality in the movie. He winks at other horses and side-eyes Sham. What was he like?
He was a total ham. I mean, they got that right. I mean, I don't know if he ever peed on the reporter, but he was he was very smart, and he was the kind of horse where if he lost a race, he would sulk. He'd turn his head to the corner and he wouldn't come out and talk to you. But he also posed. He somehow understood the connection between humans and cameras, and he really would pose. And if he heard a click, cameras in the old days clicked, right? He would turn around and pose another way. I mean, he was just so remarkable in that way, and very tuned into people, and the grooms tell the stories about him being mischievous. He wasn't mean, but you had to be on your toes, because there were several times when he escaped from them. And one story we heard, he escaped and from the grooms when he was like a yearling, ran up Route 30, just got out to the highway, ran up Route 30, and a trucker was carrying logs, stopped his truck, grabbed Secretariat until the grooms could get to him. I mean, he was just like a handful.
Like a fun story after the fact, but horrifying to think about.
Yes, horrifying at the time. Exactly.
Yes. This is actually a great question because it touches on a character that I did not really touch on. Was Elizabeth Hamm as involved as the movie shows her being?
Yes, Elizabeth Hamm was grandfather's really right arm from the late 20s right up until she died in 2000. She was, however, not like Margot Martindale, who did a wonderful job. Miss Hamm was graduated from Mount Holyoke and was very sort of formal and traditional. And I don't think she ever entered a Kmart in her entire life. That scene in the movie was pretty funny, but that was not Miss Hamm. We called her Miss Hamm. And she did. She really helped Mom when Mom took over, because she knew all the ropes. So when Mom was learning the business, she relied heavily on Elizabeth. And she was a great person, but she was definitely not the warm fuzzy that Margot Martindale was.
She's very warm fuzzy in the film.
Yeah.
Let's see. What was it like to have your mom out of the home so much? Did you guys spend a lot of time at the Meadow? Did you attend all 3 of the races? How involved were you with Secretariat's career?
Well, I went to the Meadow a lot as a kid, but when Mom took over the stable in 1968, I was 15, and what they did was send me to boarding school because I was not the kind of kid who should have been left alone unsupervised. And they were smart to do that. So I was off in Massachusetts, but that allowed me, since I was on the East Coast and my family was in Colorado, to come down to the Meadow to visit. I came and visited. I saw him as a foal. I saw him as a yearling. And then, of course, when he was racing, we would come visit. But we kids were not at all the races. The movie shows us watching the Preakness from home, and which was true. We did. But the other great thing about that was they used the original footage of the race, which was brilliant as filmmakers, because if they had actually tried to recreate that film, that the move he made in the Preakness was so dramatic. I don't know how they could have filmed that. There's no way. So it was good that they used the original footage. The Derby, so many of my aunts and uncles and moms, all their friends wanted to go. So there wasn't actually room for the kids at the Derby. We did get to see the Belmont because that was our home track. We had box seats there. We could obtain more box seats. And so more of us could go. So the kids did see the Belmont, but not the other 2.
That is actually a great segue into this question. I'm thinking about like how they would have logistically filmed the Preakness and the moves he made. He was such a unique horse, and he was so big and so beautiful. How hard was it for them to find horses to play Secretariat? They had to have quite a few.
Well, they did. They had 4. We had a lookalike contest that Mom judged, and they picked Trolley Boy, who was a half-quarter horse.
Yeah.
And that worked because Secretariat was unusually built for a thoroughbred. He had bigger hindquarters and a deeper chest. So really having a quarter horse play him was brilliant. But they also had other horses. They had a filly play him as a younger horse. So there were 4 horses altogether, and they took turns, for different scenes. And actually, Otto Thorworth, the guy who played Ron Turcotte, has this great story. He said that filming some of the races, the horse that played Sham kept winning, and he was on Secretariat, and the other horse was just faster, and he couldn't beat him. And so, the director's saying, "Look, we're running out of light. These horses are getting tired. You better win this time." So finally, apparently, he did win. But it was like the horses didn't get the memo,
Let's see. This next question is for Wayne. Why were you interested in publishing this story? I mean, I think it's a great story. I absolutely am happy that you worked on this book with them, but what was how did all that get started?
Wayne, you're muted.
Ooh.
Oh dear.
Oh no.
I will give some tech support in the chat, and we will come back to that question.
We'll come
Wayne,
back
I'll
to
come
that
at you in the
question.
chat.
Yeah, Wayne, you get live and we'll come back.
All right. Let's see. There's so many questions. What are you are very involved in Secretariat's legacy. What are your siblings? How are they involved? Are they involved? How do they feel about it?
My brother John, who's a documentarian, made a documentary called Penny and Red about Mom. And he's also a lawyer, and he's, they're all interested from afar. My brother Chris, we have the Vox Populi Award every year out in Santa Anita for the fan favorite horse, which is sometimes different from the best horse, according to the industry insiders. So my brother Chris goes and does that, and Sarah's not as connected. But I was going to say, I'm actually the second one. Sarah is the oldest, but she didn't really want to be involved. So that's why they act like I'm the oldest.
She's not really in the film. Let's see. How did you feel about the movie's representation of your dad and your parents' marriage?
They sort of soft pedaled that because there was a definite rift. Dad was a very powerful guy in his own right and very committed to his career. And I think he married, in 1949, a traditional housewife. That's what he thought. And it didn't work out that way. And he was not happy, but he really tried to be supportive in the beginning. He did move the family to New York in 1972. He got a job there. In order to help support Mom so that Mom wouldn't have to commute, which was great. But then his job got transferred to LA in 1973, and she was going to have to leave, the horse racing, which was all in the East Coast, the farm was. And they had long-term difficulties anyway. They had no role models for how to have two powerful people in the same marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people in our generation have struggled with that, but worked it out. Their generation, there just were very few examples. So they did divorce in 1974, the year after. And he went on to remarry and had a wonderful second marriage. And I think Mom was she never remarried. Well, no, she did remarry briefly, but she was very happy not.
Hey, you're going upstairs.
Somebody needs to mute.
Somebody needs to get upstairs right now.
Okay. I need to mute. Okay, go ahead.
It is looking like we have covered most of these questions. Guys, if I did not get to your question, just resend it to me. We had a lot come through. So I am going to ask you two more, unless anything else comes through. Let's see. When did Penny know that she had a special horse in Secretariat? Was it early on? Was it his 2-year-old season? We see him being called lazy quite early on by Lucian.
By the trainer. Well, he was always, he was gorgeous from the very beginning. And so that part was, we had high hopes. He was also very well bred, and we knew, Bold Ruler was the best sire in the nation at the time. And Something Royal was one of our best mares. So we had high hopes, but you never, until the horse actually performs, you never know, because they may have great beauty or great breeding and just not be able to put it together. So every time he raced, he showed us something new. But I do have notes from Mom's early journals where she, would see him, she'd go to visit, and she'd note down and say, oh, he was lovely, and wow. And, everybody was super impressed by his looks. But the reason Lucian says in the movie, and this was true, he says to her, oh, your big old Bold Ruler horse, he don't show me nothing. Or he says, I can't remember what he said. He said, oh, he's fat and lazy. Lucian actually said was, oh, that big old Bold Ruler colt, he don't show me nothing. Meaning that he had a lot of potential, but he wasn't living up to it yet. And it took him, it was just that he was so big and so powerful. He was like a gangly kid who, a teenage boy who grows into his height and doesn't have all his muscles coordinated yet. That's what Secretariat was like. It took him a while to really put it all together. And so his first race, he lost. And Mom and Lucian were in the box at Aqueduct. And, Lucian had made a really big deal about Mom being there for that race. And she wasn't always able to show up. She tried to, but for all the races. But he said, you got to be there. And she didn't really know why, because she was like, well, okay, I'll be there. So then he loses, and Lucian kicks the chair across the box and says, damn, that horse should never lose. And that's when Mom knew for the first time how great he expected Secretariat to be. But then I was there in August at Saratoga of that same year, this is 72, when I saw him do something unbelievable. And it was another one of these things where every race he showed us something new and amazing. And what he did, this was the Sanford Stakes. He got boxed behind, there were a phalanx of 3 horses in front of him, and he was right behind them. And he had a lot of energy, but he was boxed. He couldn't get through. And if he went around, he just didn't have the power and the control yet to be able to make that happen. But so they separated just for a second, and he shot through that opening. And everybody in the stands went, wow, because 2-year-olds don't do that. They don't have that courage. They don't have that knowledge. They don't have that burst of speed or that control. And so after that, everybody started saying, oh my God, that's our Derby horse for next year. And then he just kept showing us more and more speed, more control, more courage. And so by the end of the year, he was the 2-year-old horse of the year. And Riva had actually won the Derby and the Belmont, but Secretariat was
overshadowed
over Riva because he had been so incredibly powerful in the fall of his 2-year-old year. So that's, that just was something else.
I know horses racing as 2-year-olds is, it's like crazy to me. They're babies still when they're 2, and they are just doing these amazing feats of, it's no wonder so many get injured, I guess, but it is beautiful to watch.
Well, it's traditional, but there are a lot of people who say they shouldn't race that young. Yeah. I tend to agree. I think they shouldn't. They probably shouldn't race till they're 4 or 5, but it's traditional, and it's going to take a lot to have, the practice changed. We also have on this call, Julie Campbell, who wrote the book, The Horse in Virginia. And she is, I'm calling you out, Julie, I hope you don't mind. But anyway, and I see you just unmuted yourself. Sure. She is a great expert on horses as well. Hi, Julie.
Hey, how are you?
So do you want to comment on that whole thing about horses racing at age 2? And
I'm not an expert at all in thoroughbred racing, but yeah, I agree. I wish the circumstances were such that they did not race till they were 4 or 5. They're just.
Yeah, I rode jumpers as a kid, and we would never jump a horse at 2 or 3. So it's wild to me how young race horses.
Yeah. I do have to recommend Julie's book. It's fabulous. It's a really thorough history, and I'm pretty sure you guys.
Thoroughbred history. Sorry, I had to slip the pun in there.
Yeah. No, anyway, it's a great history of horses in Virginia. Julie Campbell.
Thank you.
Perfect. I will send the information out in the email tomorrow as well. Let's see. Okay, I will see if Wayne, is your sound working? Are you back with us? No.
Oh,
something you did a minute ago, Wayne, did work. Your mic came on at one point. So if you keep playing, go for it. And you can just jump in.
Yeah, just jump in whenever it works. Okay,
so
we will.
I have a funny story to tell if
absolutely.
If you don't mind hanging on. So when the Belmont scene is being filmed, we're at Keeneland in Lexington, and it's supposed to be a hot day in June. It was, it's really broiling. The Belmont was. So we're all in short sleeves. I'm an extra, Mom's an extra in that scene, and we're all in short sleeves, and we're supposed to be fanning ourselves with our programs. And in fact, it's a freezing cold day in Kentucky with a bitter wind in October. And so we are, we're all bundled up. And so when he says action, we have to throw off our parkas, and, we're acting like it's a hot day. But so the thing was, our eyes we're cheering the horse. We're filming the scene where he's finishing the Belmont. So we're supposed to cheer, and our eyes are supposed to follow a truck that is driving at the right speed along the track. And that's how, we're going to track properly and it'll look right. So, but the wind is so intense, they have this big screen up. so that we can't see the track. So instead of our eyes following a truck, we have a guy walking in front of us holding a popsicle stick with a horse on it. And so when you see that Belmont scene, we are cheering our heads off for this popsicle stick as it walks past us, which was unbelievably effective. I mean, high-tech solutions, right? Filming is never quite what you expect it to be.
$1 million budgets and
Right.
a popsicle stick.
Improvisation,
Perfect. Let's see. Oh, we have so many more questions coming in. Are you guys still okay to hang out here for a little bit while longer?
Fine. This is my favorite topic. I'm happy. I see a question from Buddy. Buddy's a great supporter of the Secretariat program, and it's very nice to see him here today.
Let's see. So he said, can you explain the difference between Lucian in real life and how he was portrayed, and then Sham's trainer as well, and just sort of if there's any major differences between characters I didn't touch on and how they were portrayed in the film?
Great question, Buddy. So Lucian was not as goofy as John Malkovich. He was also about at least a head shorter. Lucian was shorter than Mom. He was a French Canadian. He was a little fiery. He was very good at what he did, very experienced, but he was not a goofball. I don't know if he played golf. He did wear outlandish outfits, but that was the times, right? That was the 70s. People wore really ugly jackets and hats. But Lucian, he got along fine with Pancho Martin. Pancho Martin was Sham's trainer, and he was a very good trainer too. And he was also had a bit of a temper, but he was highly professional. And Mom really respected the Summers, who owned Sham. So all of that was really sort of drummed up. There's always a little trash talking in sports, but it was on that level, not on the level of, insulting each other publicly. Not at all. And Sham was this fabulous horse. The other thing I know that Buddy's alluding to was Sham was, he finished last in the Belmont, and later it turned out that he probably had a fracture of a leg. He didn't pull up suddenly, so you didn't know for sure he did, but the Sham connections said that that's really why he pulled back. And had he not had that fracture, I know Secretariat still would have won, but it might not have been by 31 lengths. So, he was a great horse, and
yeah, and I mean, something else to mention with Sham is he did set records as well, and it's likely that Secretariat could not have set the records that he set that have lasted this long if he didn't have that competition from Sham pushing him to keep going.
Well, it's possible, but if you see how Secretariat ran in Belmont, nobody was pushing him.
Yeah, he didn't need extra help, I guess.
Yeah, he was saying, hey, I feel good. I'm just going to show the world what I got today. Because he didn't have to run that way. He wanted to. So anyway.
Let's see. Did Eddie, the groom and Secretariat, have the special connection that we see them having in the film?
Absolutely. Eddie was phenomenal. Eddie was, a great groom, and he loved Secretariat. When he retired, Eddie was just devastated because Eddie couldn't continue to be his groom. Yeah. But they had a special bond. Like Secretariat would tease him. He would haul the rake away from him when Eddie was trying to clean out his stall. He would, so they'd play keep away. And Eddie was from South Carolina. And if you know the Low Country, there's a dialect called Gullah, which is derived from an African language. So Eddie spoke Gullah, and he spoke Gullah to Secretariat. And that was kind of his sing-songy, really kind of the, how when he'd groom him, he'd be talking to him. And they definitely had this very, very special bond, I would say.
I love the story about the Gullah. When you told me that, I loved that.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, last one. We'll do last one. Can you talk a little bit about Secretariat's descendants? I mean, people paid an astronomical amount of money to breed with him. How was he as a sire?
Well, let me back up just 1 second about what you had said, Maggie. The thing about the syndication was we didn't have a choice. The reason we didn't have a choice is because Granddad died, and it was estate taxes that we had to pay. Mm-hmm. So, and that's why it was so much, and that's why we had to do it so quickly. We had to do it by September, and he died in January. So, and that was the other reason we had to do it before the Triple Crown. So it was a huge risk. Mom, the syndication was by far the largest at that time. It wasn't the first syndication ever, but it was outrageous, the amount. But really, when you think about it, we were asking for 190,000 per share. Now, and later, one of those single shares so 190,000 got you the right to breed your horse once a year to Secretariat for as long as Secretariat lived. Later, one single share was sold for $500,000 for a single season. So it was a huge, it was a great investment.
Turned out to be quite the bargain.
It looked like a big, big risk.
Yeah.
But so as a sire, Leanne is also an expert on this. If you want to chime in, Leanne.
Yeah, feel free, Leanne.
He had over 650 offspring. He turned out not to be as good a direct sire, meaning his direct offspring did not. There were some great ones, but he didn't have as many great ones as he did. He had 3 fabulous daughters, and they produced some of the best sires that are still in their bloodlines are still in the business. So the 3 sires are AP, Indy, Gone West, and I just drew a blank.
Stormcat.
Stormcat, thank you, buddy. All right. Anyway, Secretariat's bloodlines are still very potent in the current breeding industry. Leanne keeps track of this. Leanne, you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. And coming from AP, Indy, Stormcat, and Gone West, if you look at most of the major races, and certainly the Triple Crown races, well over 50-60% of the horses in those races will be descendants of Secretariat through either AP, Indy, Stormcat, or Gone West. The last couple of Triple Crown winners with Justify and American Pharaoh, both are descendants of Secretariat. The horses, if I'm remembering correctly, this year that won the Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont, 3 different horses, all of them were descendants of Secretariat. And in some of those races, say you had 10 horses, probably 8 or 9 of them were descendants of Secretariat. And same thing with Breeders' Cup in those races. So those bloodlines have really lived on, again, thanks to those 3 daughters and then Secretariat's grandsons, and just, the strength of that bloodline. So that keeps him relevant today.
Yep. Yeah. Although he has not reproduced himself.
That would probably have been impossible.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I think we will end it there. A once in a lifetime horse, a once in a many lifetimes horse.
Well, Maggie, thank you so much. It's been really fun for us to come and talk about it. We always enjoy doing this, and it was a great opportunity to do it Zoom-wise, which is, brings it to a wider audience. And thank you so much. All the familiar faces I see, all my friends. I see Harry and Patty and Julie and Buffy's on here. All kinds of friends from various parts of my life. I'm so pleased you all showed up.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. This would not have been nearly as good without you. And I was just so happy to be able to chat with you about this story. I will, for everyone in the participants, I will send out a follow-up email with information about how you can buy this book and some more resources and all of that. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Patty. Good to see you.
I was invisible.
Yeah, I didn't